Stephen Wilson, welcome to Noise11.com. It's great that we're going to be seeing you back in Australia. 7 years has been a long time.
Yeah, we've all got that sort of horrible kind of like lost period in our lives now, haven't we? It's amazing. No, I'm really excited about it. You know, one of the things about not having toured for 7 years is there was such a feeling of excitement from me and the band, and I think the audience too. And I wanted to kind of go out and do something even more special than anything I'd done before. I wanted to try and raise the bar with this tour and really remind people, how my kind of approach to conceptual rock music and presenting it live is very much about the whole experience. So you come along to the show and you're going to get a very, very strong multimedia visual aspect to the show too. And the album's very much been conceived from the beginning to be an experience. I mean, it's a journey into space. I would say literally, but it's not literally a journey into space, but it feels almost like it in a way. So it's very exciting to be back out on tour with my incredible band and presenting something so ambitious and so immersive. I can't wait to bring it to Australia.
The overview album is just absolutely stunning. I can't wait to see what you do with this, but you're performing the entire album at the start of the show, aren't you?
So the first half of the show is essentially a complete performance of the record from beginning to end with this film. And it's, it's not just a film running in the background. This film has been made to be very much a part of the experience. So it's quite unusual. I think it's quite, the message I'm getting from people when they come along and see this is they say they've never seen anything quite like it. And I don't want to give too much away about it, but certainly the album is a big part. You know, it's the first part of the show and it's performed from beginning to end. Yeah.
It's such a brilliant concept, and it's like viewing the Earth from further and further and further away. It sounds like a show that should be performed in a planetarium.
It has been talked about, yeah. In fact, interesting, the whole genesis of the project was a discussion I had with a very good friend of mine who runs a company called Space Rocks. And Space Rocks is, as the name would suggest, is an organization that is kind of dedicated to bringing together the worlds of astronomy and science with music, which sounds like kind of fairly odd bedfellows, but actually I think it makes a lot of sense, because one thing I think people like myself, musicians, have we're very interested in what's beyond. And in the same way that astronomers are and scientists are, we're very curious about what's kind of out there. There's that natural curiosity that I think artistic people have. So he has this organization called Space Rocks, and he was the one that originally told me. So a lovely fellow called Alex Milas, he used to be the editor of Metal Hammer. So he goes back years and years in the music world. And he was the one that first told me about this thing called the overview effect, which, when he told me that became the kind of light bulb moment for the impetus for the whole project.
The formula of time as we know it on this planet is all around gravity and us. As you go further out, that does not exist.
What really appealed to me about this whole overview idea was reminding human beings to have a sense of perspective. And, we mentioned the whole COVID thing, but I don't know about you guys over there, but we're living through very difficult times here politically. And, everything going on in Israel and everything going on in the Ukraine and the likes of Trump and all the sort of Trump imitators that are being elected into government all over the world. We're going through very problematic times, very difficult times. And I think the problem is that human beings have massive egos. We think somehow that we're the most important thing in the universe. We think that we're the most important thing on this planet, and that we somehow are curators of our own planet. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. The Earth has been here for 4 billion years. We've been here for about 300,000, which means, relatively speaking, we've been here for about 2 minutes. 2 minutes we've been here. And what have we managed to do in those 2 minutes? Well, we've managed to fuck the planet up quite well. That's the first thing we managed to do. But the point I'm making is, I think, and I don't want people to think this is some kind of massive negative thing about the human species. Quite the opposite. there is an element of the album that is actually very positive about life, the gift of life. And I think the ultimate message I'm trying to give people at the end of the record is enjoy the ride. The point is this, that your life is really irrelevant to the universe. Humanity is irrelevant to the universe. The numbers when you go into it are mind blowing. The sheer magnitude and size of the universe in time and space is unbelievable, almost so massive the mind can't conceive of it. So my message is the universe doesn't care about you. So enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride and try to look up sometimes rather than spending your whole life looking down at that. And I know this because I have kids and I see that they just spend their whole life looking down into their digital devices. Bullshit on TikTok. And it's nice to be able to remind people sometimes, metaphorically and literally, to look up. Look up at the stars, look up at this massive space above you. So I think that's the message I'm trying to get across really at the end of the day, is it's about space, but it's not about space. It's really about us and our relationship to the universe.
Yeah, people don't understand that they think they're the center of the universe, but we're a grain of sand on a grain of sand on a grain of sand on a grain of sand.
Exactly this. Exactly this. Exactly
Mm.
this. Yeah.
So you worked with Andy Partridge on this record. You worked with XTC in the past. They've been part of your remix projects. What was Andy's part in the overview?
So there was a section on the overview where I wanted to tell a story. So there are these little, even though the album is essentially one long piece of music, there are sections, and each section has its own little theme. One of the sections I wanted to have a kind of soap opera, a sort of a little bit of a bit of a window on everyday life on Earth. These little soap operas: a husband cheating on his wife, a nurse working in a care home, a kid starting, a young man starting his first job in a car showroom. I wanted these little soap opera moments, but I wanted to somehow contrast each of those little soap operas with the most massive cosmic phenomena, stars dying, black holes imploding on the other side of the universe. Again, to create this feeling of cosmic vertigo, this idea of perspective. Your tiny little things going on in your life might matter to you, but meanwhile, universe, whole uh, planets are being formed on the other side of the universe, stars, and I wanted something that would feel very earthbound at the same time as it was like cosmic. So I went to Andy because to me, Andy is the king of writing about small town life. In fact, there are two people I would think of that write better than anyone about small town life, particularly from a British perspective, which are Ray Davies from the Kinks and Andy from XTC.
Oh.
And I don't have Ray's phone number, and I think Andy's to me is a little bit better anyway at it, and for my taste anyway. So luckily, I was able to go to Andy and say, Andy, got a problem for you, got a challenge for you, and I described exactly what I've described to you there. I said, this is what I want to achieve, and bless him, he went away and wrote it, and he did a fantastic job.
So you started with the story, and then how did the music build around that?
That's a good question. I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know. I follow my nose. I follow my nose. I mean, I think I'm at the stage in my career where I don't sort of try and second guess what I'm doing. And I have all these different things that I love musically in my musical DNA. I mean, I love everything from pop to ambient to electronic to prog rock to metal to jazz. I love it all. So it's all in my musical DNA, and I kind of just let it all come out. And in this case, I let it come out through these big, long conceptual pieces. And they do move around in all these different styles within themselves. And I don't know. I knew I had a story to tell. I wanted to start off on Earth, and I wanted to end up on the other side of the universe. And that was all I knew. And musically speaking, I let the music flow. I came up with a theme early on, which became kind of a foundation for a lot of the music. This simple six chords and 18-note theme, which you hear in various places reoccurring through the record. But apart from that, I didn't have a master plan. I let each door kind of lead to the next room, if that makes sense. And it just flowed. It doesn't always work like that, but this time it worked beautifully. It just flowed in a very natural way. And I felt like it kind of fell into my lap in that respect.
So we've got the overview. What is the alter view? Was that the leftovers or the
Kind of,
continuation?
yeah. It's no, it's kind of I wouldn't say it's left well, it is leftovers in the sense that it's stuff that didn't make the final record, but it's also some extended versions of some of the sections on the record. It was something that was only given to fans that bought the really fancy book deluxe edition. So extended versions of some of the sections on the record, ideas that were tried and didn't make the final record. I mean, I was very committed to the idea that the album would be about 40 minutes long. I wanted it to be classic old school vinyl length, two sides, 20 minutes a side. I was committed to that idea. But there were ideas that came up that would have probably turned it into a longer record. So they became part of this thing called the alter view, which is like a kind of alternate version of the record in that sense. Yeah.
So the overview comes 2 years after the Harmony Codex, which comes 2 years
Mm,
after the Future Bites. Is
mm.
this a frequency that you plan on keeping up in years to come?
I hope so. I grew up in an era when bands made records every year. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. So I got used to the fact the artists I followed, whether it was Prince or U2 or or The Cure or whoever it was I was following in the 80s, every year a new album. And you go back further to the 70s, sometimes bands were making albums twice a year. Elton John released in 1973, Elton John released Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, a double album and another record, Good Don't Shoot Me, I'm the Piano Player. Unbelievable. That blows my mind. There was ever a time when artists were that prolific. But it's very common now for bands to take 5, 6, 7, 10 years between albums. And I think that's kind of disappointing in a way to be a fan of that band and realize you've got to wait so long for the next installment if they're in their kind of musical trajectory. So I've tried to keep up a better flow of music. And also I love making records. I love making records. It's not always easy and it gets harder as I get older because there's more stuff in the past that I don't want to repeat. And it's harder to find the things that you will be excited about, that your fans will be excited about, that they've not heard you do before. And I think that's very important to me to not repeat myself. So it gets harder. So I don't want to make any promises, but certainly I'm already thinking about perhaps what my next record might be. Thinking about, I haven't started it, but at least I have some ideas floating around. So I hope so is the answer to your question. Yeah.
So you've got all these
Okay, go on.
remixes happening. You've got the
Hmm.
touring. You've got the albums in the future coming up. How do you fit it into one day?
I feel incredibly privileged and honored to be doing what I do for a living. Okay. I don't underestimate what a gift it is to be doing what I do. I basically make music for a living. And not only do I make music for a living, I make music without any compromise. I don't do anything I don't want to do. I only take on remix projects of albums and artists I actually like and want to work on. I only make records that I believe in. And I don't even try to fit into a genre. I don't try to please the fans. I don't do any of that. And somehow, amongst all this self-indulgence, I've managed to make a pretty good career for myself. And I don't underestimate what a privilege that is. So that's the first thing to say is I feel that my career, for want of a better word, is already kind of like a dream that's come true. And I genuinely love going to the studio and I genuinely love playing music. I genuinely love touring. And it's not something that even feels like work. I do work long hours, but I would say also this. So the second part of the answer to the question is I do work quite fast. And I don't work 23 hours a day. I finish every day at 7 o'clock and I spend time with my family and my kids. But I fit a lot in. I fit a lot in every day. And I work quite quickly and my mind works quite quickly. But I do have a strong work ethic that I think I got back from my dad, who was the same.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, I love my job. It doesn't feel like a job, and I do work quite quickly. I think those are the three sort of tenets of my career. Yeah.
And clearly, you would have to love what you do. To pick a major album, a Pink Floyd album, is a no-brainer. To pick a Gentle Giant album is a totally different scenario. You must be really into, bringing out something from 1972 that didn't really do that big back in 1972. What was the motivation for something like A Gentle Giant?
It's just amazing music, and I love it. And I think you kind of answered your own question. Is that that's the point. Is that I don't do things just because they're commercially successful or they're going to sell tens of thousands of copies. I do things that I firstly I'm going to enjoy doing. Secondly, I really like the people. The Gentle Giant guys are the sweetest guys. I don't know if you've ever interviewed those guys, but they're the sweetest guys. And thirdly, the music is incredible and it deserves to have its profile. C catalog as well is those bands are what you would call a little bit underrated. And one of the things that's beautiful about remixing their work is some people discover the bands for the first time through the remixes. And it might be that they're my fans and that they see, oh, Stephen's remixed this band called Gentle Giant. Never heard of them. But if he's worked on them, I'm definitely going to check them out. And then, oh my God, they're amazing. I'm going to collect the whole catalogue. And that for me is the greatest gift of all, is to be able to introduce music that I think is amazing to people that don't know it before. And that's happened a lot with Gentle Giant. I see, to me, it's only second to the Beatles in terms of innovation, songwriting genius. And, to be able to introduce that to your fans is such a great feeling. So that's the reason I do the Gentle Giant as well.
So when you're doing a Pink Floyd, as you've recently done with Live in Pompeii, which is mind-blowing, how close to the original sound do you have to keep that? Because there's fans that are going to know every single note of that record and they're going to know anything that's been adjusted. How cautious are you with tampering with something that a lot of people consider to be a musical treasure?
Well, I think if we expand that question a bit more broad, I mean, Pompeii is a slightly different kettle of fish because it's never been commercially released as a audio only album before. So although there have been mixes before, there's never been a definitive album mix of that record before, and not in stereo either. The original mix was only in mono. So that's a slightly different scenario. But I think broadly speaking, if I'm approaching, say, one of Ian's records, Jethro Tull records, or, like I've just done Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, for example, those kind of records, which sold a lot of copies and were very beloved by a lot of people, and they know them very well, and they know them like the back of their hand. They know them better than the artist because they've listened to them for years, year in, year out. They've been listening to those records. So the answer to your question is I do feel very strongly that I need to be faithful to the original mixes and honor a lot of the original decisions, creative decisions that were made when the albums were originally mixed. Because obviously the reason I'm remixing a lot of these records primarily, and again, this is where Pompeii is slightly different because that had never been mixed properly in stereo before. Most of the remixes I do are because there is a request to create a spatial audio version of the album. So a 5.1 or a Dolby Atmos mix.
Deep Purple, made in Japan, that was only reissued 10 years ago for the 40th anniversary. How do you give that a point of difference for the 50th anniversary?
Well, again, I think that what's changed in the last 10 years is Dolby Atmos has become a very, very big thing. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but it's a very big thing in Europe now and America. Dolby Atmos has sent all the record labels scurrying back to their big catalog to get it all remixed into Dolby Atmos. So my job is to take these classic albums and to bring them out into so that you feel like you're inside the music. Now, Made in Japan is a classic example of a live album, a 70s live album, where there's an opportunity to make you feel like you're literally in the hall watching the band. It's amazing. So you have the audience literally around you and behind you. You have reflections of the band off the ceiling, off the back wall, and it feels like you're in the show. So that's the beauty of taking a classic live album like that and remixing it into spatial audio. And that's what's different to 10 years ago, is that Atmos really wasn't a thing 10 years ago. It's just exploded really since Apple adopted it. About 5-6 years ago, Apple adopted Atmos and spatial audio, and it's just become a very, very big thing in the industry.
So is Atmos your recommendation of choice that we should be listening to when we go to our Blu-ray player and you look down the audio options? Is that the best option?
If you can, I mean, it comes with a caveat that it has to be done well. I mean, I like to think my mixes I do well, but there are mixes out there where the stereo is still, to be honest, it's the best way to hear it. If it's done in a way that honors the original mix, I think it can definitely add an extra sort of perspective on a classic record. To me, stereo is still very special. I still love stereo. I listen to a lot of vinyl. I still love vinyl, but there's certainly something. There's another dimension. That's the word I'm looking for. There's definitely another dimension to the albums you love if they are mixed properly in spatial audio. It's like being in the room with the band, which is amazing, I think.
We heard about the passing of Ozzy Osbourne yesterday, just over on the other side of my camera here. I've got Black Sabbath Volume 4, which includes 6 of your remixes, but not the entire album. Did you do the entire album of that?
No, because the tapes were lost. So that's a classic example, and this has happened a few times over the years with me. Um, the will to do it was there. The record company wanted to do it, the manager wanted to do it, I wanted to do it, and then they couldn't find the tapes. What they did find was some outtake reels of the band running through different takes of the songs. So we did what we could, which is basically I mixed these outtakes, which I think are fascinating if you're a fan of that record, to go back and hear the band running through many different takes of Supernaut or Wheels of Confusion. There's some great stuff there, but unfortunately I wasn't able to mix the actual album because the multi-track tapes have, as with the whole Sabbath catalogue, they've pretty much disappeared, sadly.
In terms of the concert, we have that coming up in Australia. We're looking forward to that. In the meantime, we've got the Overview album is absolutely stunning stuff. This is an album I put on and go, wow.
Oh, well, that's amazing to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it live.
It's. I think the experience of seeing it live with the film is going to be hopefully quite profound, for at least for the people that already appreciate the record. I think they're going to have a really profound experience with that's the message I'm getting back from the people that have seen it anyway. So I'm very excited. I can say that. I know that sounds really egotistical, but I can say that because a lot of what's really amazing about the show is the stuff I had nothing to do with. Like the film and the band I have with me are just amazing musicians. I'm the worst musician on stage by far, and that's the way I like it to be. Yeah.
As well as Frankie Goes to Hollywood, what else are you working on?
Oh, there's loads. I mean, there's so much stuff coming. Oh, an album I did for the Grateful Dead has just been announced yesterday. Blues for Allah's coming out. I remixed that into surround and stereo. There's more Yes stuff coming out. What else have I done? There's another Who project I've done coming out soon, and Phil Collins, No Jacket Required, one of the great
Of
80s
course,
pop
yes.
records for
Yeah, that's
me.
been announced.
Yeah, yeah, very excited about that. I mean, again, that's an album that couldn't be more 80s, the album, but I absolutely love it. What a great pop record. So that's exciting. And lots of stuff I can't tell you about because if I did, the management and record companies would get very upset with me. But there's a lot. There's a lot. I'm very lucky to be very busy all the time at the moment, which is amazing. Amazing.
Can't wait to hear the new stuff. Can't wait to see you in concert. It's great to have you here at Noise 11, Stephen.
Fantastic. Nice to speak to you, Paul.
And love to Bowie.
Thank you very much. And likewise to Winston. He's a very cute doggy. I hope I get to meet him when I come there in November.
No doubt when you're in Melbourne.